Good morning. Eventful times, moving times. I think this word is an upheaval. I experience just how much this is true every day in my job as the Bavarian Minister for Europe. This applies equally to visits to South Korea, to Japan or the US, or conversations with our Bavarian partner region, the Chinese province Shandong. And during these days of the DLD in Munich, we will find out about all the things that will be possible in the future and how the latest international digital developments may soon burst into our everyday life as a matter of course. The scope of what the digital revolution will change is enormous and impressive. And in all of the new developments ranging from the nursing care robot to the remote medical diagnosis per mobile phone, we, the citizens, the politicians, and the business community must all jointly ask this question: which developments do we support? How can we further develop and use them and earn money and create jobs with them? And which developments? One catchword is the new social loan system in China that wants to turn the transparent citizen into the well-behaved citizen. So which developments perhaps will not find place in our Bavarian homeland because they fail to meet our social requirements of self-determination and data privacy? This is not an easy task that we must tackle in a great variety of areas, all of us together as a society. Dear Steffi, your DLD conference is much more a highlight in my calendar because I know anyone who looks into the future comes to you. Every year you bring the worldwide internet elite to Munich for the DLD conference and set digital trends for the future. In Bavaria, we are really proud of this innovation hotspot in our capital city. Thank you for your untiring commitment. So, now you are really great. Innovation, guys, distinguishes between a leader and a follower. I would like to add this to these words by Steve Jobs. The prosperity of the future depends on the pioneers and the encouragers, on the clever minds in business, research, and the media, in other words, on all of you. And it depends on politicians with clear goals, on politicians who provide for good basic conditions and create a positive climate for the digital revolution. Last autumn, I got to know a successful pioneer with unbelievable innovation power in Serbia. Dear Prime Minister Brnabic, dear Anna, during my visit to Belgrade last October, you were immediately enthusiastic when I told you about the DLD in Munich and Tel Aviv and New York and. So I am especially pleased that you will be a part of this event today. I very warmly welcome you to Bavaria. You are both the head of the government and the chief information officer of your country. And as the Minister of Public Administration, you already advanced the digital administration for the benefit of your citizens. As the Prime Minister, you are now consistently continuing on this path. Digitalization is one of your government's two most important domestic priorities, and we can sense this. Innovation power is everywhere, and the emergence into the digital age is everywhere. You have deeply impressed me. With you as its head, Serbia is taking large steps towards Europe. In a few moments, we can become convinced about your ideas and your enthusiasm. Let us continue to work together so well for the benefit of the people in Bavaria and Serbia, for a Bavarian's path to the European Union. I'm looking forward to your lecture.
Thank you very much. It's a really kind introduction, and I'm happy and proud to be called a friend of DLD. It's a fantastic event. I've read a lot about it, and it's a real privilege for me as the Prime Minister of Serbia to be able to be here and tell you all a little bit about what we are doing in Serbia and how we are going to use digitalization and Industrial Revolution 4.0 to leapfrog and really use this opportunity that is presenting to the entire world to change the paradigm of our growth and our economy. In the background, you will be able to see our presentation, which will basically be just a slideshow of different images from Serbia that will show you the potentials and the strengths of Serbia that are not well known, not in the world, and unfortunately, not in Serbia itself. And these are the potentials that I want to draw on and put together, as you said, all of these strengths so they can basically cause the disruption to the society. And then the sky is the limit. And then everything can happen in Serbia. And then that positive effect, hopefully, can have a spillover effect to the entire region. And Serbia and the region can really start contributing to the strength of Europe and different Europe altogether. So I'm very optimistic about the future ahead of us if we really use this opportunity that digitalization is presenting to us. I'll tell you a little bit about the momentum that Serbia has right now. So the previous government, under my predecessor, current President Vučić, has made a lot of very difficult, very painful, but very necessary steps in order to achieve macroeconomic and fiscal stability. We cut public spending, and we had to go as far as to actually reduce pensions. So that tells you that we really had to make drastic measures in order to achieve fiscal stability. About 4 years ago, we were 3 months away from the bankruptcy. Today, the macroeconomic situation in Serbia, fortunately, looks very, very difficult. We've achieved macroeconomic stability. We've achieved fiscal discipline and fiscal stability. The public debt has been drastically reduced. In end of 2016, the public debt was 73% of our GDP. Today, it's 57%, so we are no longer hugely in that nation. The unemployment rate is constantly being reduced. The inflation is always under the planned limits, and we have sustained GDP growth, which needs to be much more dynamic. But that is really what this government under my leadership needs to do. So the previous government has basically made a healthy basis for dynamic growth in the future. What we need to do now is really look for different origins of this growth and also make a radical step forward, leapfrog, in order to enable a more dynamic, a sustainable growth in the future. And there is no other way for us, for Serbia, I think, as well as any other country, but for Serbia especially, to do that apart from digitalization. So that's why the two key, as Beata said, the two key priorities in terms of domestic politics of Serbia, of Serbian government, are digitalization and education. And these two go hand in hand. The one cannot do without the other. And what's our focus? And I'll try to be as straightforward as possible. It's e-government, so electronic services for citizens and for businesses. It's education. It's infrastructure to enable more startups, more innovation. It's legal framework, and it's examples. It's leading by examples, the examples that you will see in this presentation that is basically in the background of my speech. In terms of e-government, and again, as Beata said, and thank you very much, you really know a lot about Serbia and about my work. Before becoming the Prime Minister, I was the Minister of Public Administration and Local Government. And in terms of thinking about how to reform public administration, we're doing many things. We are basically optimizing the number of people in the public administration. We are now introducing the National Academy for civil servants, for the Republic level, as well as for the local level, to have continuing education of civil servants. But most importantly to me, we're introducing e-government. E-government is our answer for efficiency, for transparency, and for fight against corruption. If you remove physical contact between a citizen and a business person with the civil servant, you're basically removing opportunities for corruption, low-level corruption or high-level corruption. And that is what we are striving to do now. And we've started with establishing basically the central office of the government for IT and e-government in order to coordinate the work of the entire government and public sector. We have now established, as you've seen, the data center where all the government data will be stored, which would be cost-saving mechanism. It will also serve to to protect the data of the citizens. We are establishing the key registries: citizens registry, address registry, and property database, in order to enable efficient exchange of information between all public services. We've adopted the law on general public administration, administrative procedures, making it mandatory for different public services to electronically exchange data so that citizens are no longer asked to bring additional data which any of the public administration, any of the civil servants, tax administration, municipality, National Employment Service, anything that's already in the public domain, citizens cannot be asked to basically bring this now to the government in order for us to issue one of the documents. So the best examples of this is that we've introduced this exchange of different databases in the public domain that contributes to 6.7 million documents annually, which were printed and handed over to the citizens to basically be removed. So 6.7 million documents annually are no longer needed. This is still, as you can imagine, work in progress. It's still not done, but that's part of the plan that we have ahead of us. We also introduced successfully this, which we are especially proud of, this service called e-baby, meaning that when we have a newborn baby in the maternity ward, it's being registered in the maternity ward. So the parents do not have to go from counter to counter to the police office, to the local government to register the baby and apply for the medical book, for the certificate of birth. This all is now done. This is all now done in the maternity ward. When you get home, the state basically sends all of these documents to you at home. And that is the example that we are going to expand further. So that is e-government. In terms of education, to promote Industrial Revolution 4.0, we are doing several things, both in the aspect of formal education and the aspect of informal education. In terms of formal education, we've now finally introduced mandatory coding as a subject in the primary school. So mandatory subject coding and programming in the primary school as of the 5th grade, which is when children are basically 10 years old. We've done that, I think, in a fantastic, I think Serbia currently has one of the best, if not the best, coding and programming in the primary schools in Europe. Not thanks to the government, thanks to the support and the partnership with civil society organizations, which are basically doing this for the children that were preparing for competitions. Now, they've adopted these curriculum and handed over to the Ministry of Education, and now we have this in Serbia. That was the first thing to be done, and it was done. We've also connected all the primary schools into the safe and secure academic network of Serbia. So they all now have internet access. And in terms of faculties, we've increased the capacities of all technical faculties in Serbia to enroll 20% more students last year, and we are continuing doing that for the next year. 2018, the focus is on the secondary schools, so we have to connect all the secondary schools and increase numbers of specialized IT departments in the secondary schools in order to connect primary schools with universities. So that's the next steps. In terms of informal education, we've done the market analysis which said that in Serbia we miss about 3,000 junior programmers, so low-skilled people for the IT industry. 3,000 a year could be employed, and we do not have them in the market. So if the government has introduced this retraining courses from 3 to 6 months, after which these people have internship and they're ready for the market. We've trained by now 100 people as the pilot project, learned from this pilot, adopted the retraining a little bit, and have now started the 900 people in the retraining. This is now started. We have the goal of retraining 1,000 more people through the National Employment Service in 2018. So that's part of the informal education. We are trying to bring together formal and informal education in order to meet the demand of the market. That's education. Third is infrastructure. We need infrastructure for startup and innovation companies. And that is a signal that we want to boost them. We want to give them free space. We want to give them support, market support, legal support, and we want to make as much of the accelerators as possible in Serbia. In the next 3 years, Serbia will invest in partnership with European Investment Bank 50 million euros only in infrastructure. Right now we have Science and Technology Park in Belgrade. You've seen one of the slides, Science and Technology Park in Belgrade. Fantastic institution, which currently has over 60 startup and innovation companies employing over 500 high-class engineers. 75% of their products, software, is being exported from Serbia. Fantastic people, great companies. Some of them are slowly starting to leave the business incubator because they're strong enough to establish and pay for their premises, employ more people. They have access to finance, so they can go on their own. We are currently building the Science and Technology Park in Novi Sad, which is going to be basically a 30,000 square meters space, of which 10,000 will be for Faculty of Technological Sciences. About 6,000 square meters will be for already established companies, for their research departments, and the rest will be for startup companies. So that in that Science and Technology Park, we already have incubator, so they can learn from one another and help each other. And we're building Science and Technology Park also in Niš, which is south of Serbia, so that we have infrastructure all over Serbia. So that's the third component, infrastructure. Fourth component is legislative framework. This is basically the legislation that will drive are e-documents, so that we basically have nothing to do more with the paper format, the electronic payments, the electronic archiving, electronic signatures, and access to finance. This is all very complex. This is probably the area where Serbia will need to do most in 2018, and especially in terms of access to finance and enabling more VC funds to be present in Serbia, more microfinancing institutions, everything that is basically needed for startups and entrepreneurship to grow in Serbia. And then examples, leading by examples. We have established last year the organization called Digital Serbia, and they're here with me in this DLD conference, fantastic people that have actually made it without any government support. Before the government even started thinking about digitalization and startup companies and innovation and what they can do to change the economic development of Serbia, to bring in something new, innovative, added value to Serbian economy. So these are the people like Nordos, one of the most successful video gaming company in Serbia, made in Serbia. We have Seven Bridges Genomics, one of the leading companies in the world for biogenetic research, also declared by the US MIT as one of the 50 smartest companies in the world, also made in Serbia. We have also companies like Microsoft Development Center, one of the most successful research and development centers of Microsoft in Europe is in Serbia. These are all the examples that we want to show to the Serbian people who still do not believe that this is the paradigm of future growth of Serbia. So lead by examples. Digital Serbia is currently serving as kind of objective, impartial, external advisor to myself and the Serbian government, because the government doesn't know, to be honest, the government doesn't know a lot. You need to, the government misses that capacity, and the more we understand that we do miss capacities and turn to people who know more about us to listen to them, the more the quicker we are going to progress. And so this is what we are doing right now, and listening to people who know much more than we do, and listening to them what we need to do, and then as the government we are trying to implement these things. So that is basically the ecosystem that we are trying to now bring together and promote in Serbia in order to really leapfrog. And finally, the next step for us, and I've seen this in DLD as well, I've seen it last night during the dinner with fantastic atmosphere, the fantastic band. All of this is one thing, it's creative. Industry 4.0, digitalization, it's about creativity, it's about innovation. And so the next step for us is now to bring into all of this ecosystem creative industries. And creative industries, although no one in Serbia really thinks in terms of creative industries, are basically currently the sector which is 5th largest contributor to Serbia's GDP. And 90% of the companies in the creative industries are micro companies, employing people or people who are self-made from 25 to 44 years old. Exactly the kind of people that we want to bring in and showcase so that we can change the future of Serbia. Thank you very much for this opportunity to present you what Serbia is doing. It's a real honor, and I hope that I'll come back many more times in this fantastic event. And I also invite you to perhaps do something together with us in Serbia and have a DLD event in Serbia in 2018. Thank you very much.